I often tell my students that the purpose of life is really to be the biggest character in the greatest story possible. And Baruch Hashem, I think I'm doing pretty good. I wake up in the morning inspired to start my day. I go to bed at night generally feeling fulfilled. And I really do experience myself making a difference in the world. I experience myself leaving a mark on history. And I think that's an experience we should all aspire to have. I made the joke actually last night when I was teaching, maybe it's not a joke, that I grew up in New York City in the 1990s, had many adventures, and if somebody in Hollywood were to make a film about my life as a teenager, I think that most people here would probably see it at least twice. It'd be a great movie. But that being said, I think my movie now, my life now, would be a better movie. And that's partially because my movie now is not just about me, it's not just my story, but it's really the story of my people. It's the story of the children of Israel. It's a story of an ancient people that was broken by the Roman Empire and scattered throughout the world, yet somehow managed to reunite in the homeland we were displaced from nearly 2,000 years later and come back to life. And we're unique in history. And we managed to come home through this very narrow, a particularist national movement called Zionism. Zionism is a very divisive word today. And for the purposes of this presentation, I really want to just define Zionism as self-defined Zionists generally understand the word, which is Jewish liberation. I would say that Zionism is the narrow, particularist Jewish national movement that successfully brought our people back to the homeland we were displaced from. It revived a dead language, which I don't think anyone else has succeeded in doing, to my knowledge, in human history. Two already incredible features of the Zionist revolution that set it apart from every other revolutionary movement in history. Even though other peoples and other revolutionary movements had successfully liberated their countries from British occupation, I think within the context of what the Jewish people was in the 1940s and what the British Empire was in the 1940s, I would argue that our victory over England was remarkable. And according to British documents, official British documents, they left our country due to Jewish terrorism, essentially. So we had a victory over England, which I still think is remarkable, despite the fact that other revolutionary movements have also freed their countries from foreign rule and even British rule. But then in 1967, we unified Jerusalem. We convinced ourselves on some level that Jewish history had attained its happy ending, and our revolution, for the most part, stopped. I think for all intents and purposes, we are all living in a post-Zionist reality right now. And I think we've been living in a post-Zionist reality for half a century. And the problem is that we haven't acknowledged this. Instead, I think what we've done, or at least what Israeli society has done, is just kind of watered down the definition of Zionism so that it's a big enough tent for everybody to be included within, or almost everybody to be included within, and it amounts to little more than a barbecue on Yom Ha'atzmaut and miluim, reserve duty. And the next generation needs a new ideological framework. The Jewish people needs a new ideological framework. We need to create the new ism that will take Jewish history to the next stage, that will advance our revolution forward. And I don't believe that Zionism, certainly not most ideological streams of Zionism, possess the tools to address the crises of this generation, or the needs of Israeli society, or the broader Jewish world, or our aspirations for humanity. And we need to transcend this narrow, particularist Jewish nationalism and really unpack that which we've been afraid to unpack thus far. To really discover a uniquely Hebrew universalism that shares a vision for the world that can actually compete with the other visions for mankind we're hearing coming from other cultures and other civilizations. And without this, I'm not sure we'll be able to move forward. So I really believe it's the task of the next generation, and this is probably my primary focus as an educator, to formulate the next ideology of Jewish liberation. I believe that this is a work in progress, that activists and students and thinkers need to really focus on. There will be friction, there will be disagreement, but we will come to an ideological framework that can take our people forward. I believe we have to analyze what's left for our revolution to accomplish. What are the Jewish national aspirations that have not yet been achieved? What are the obstacles standing in the way of us achieving those goals? And how can we be the historical characters that smash those obstacles? Now, I personally have arrived at some conclusions. I don't believe that other people have to adopt my conclusions. I want people to go through the process and come to their own conclusions, and I certainly don't mind if they come to the same conclusions as me, but I'm really only sharing my own conclusions in order to provide examples of what I'm talking about.